This is the Nostalgic Future Podcast, where the past is the only way forward.
We're two guys in our 40s watching the world pass us by, and we know the only way we'll ever be relevant again is to somehow convince everyone to be as passionate as we are about our pop culture obsessions.
We are your hosts, Joe Cook and Chris Marchand, and today is part one of our 2023 Pop Culture Resolutions.
Joe, it's a new year. Do you feel like everything's begun again? Do you feel it?
Oh, the sun's a little warmer. The flowers are brighter. Everything. It's. I feel born again, Chris. It's that time of year, and I feel a sense of resolve. For this to be. This is going to be the year, Chris. This is going to be the year when I check off all my resolutions. I'm gonna lose that 50 pounds. I think I'm going to start rowing. I think I'm going to row.
There you go. Yeah. A year from now, you'll be like, hey, Chris, I just rode 25 miles. You'll be down. What's that thing, that lagoon you told me about that they call a river?
Oh, yeah. So I live right off the Indian River, but it's not a river. It's a lagoon, as you mentioned. And I have a theory that, they discovered this thing and they went, wow, look at this huge river. And then they named it. Then, centuries later, somebody came along and said, you schmucks, this is a lagoon. And so now it's the Indian River Lagoon.
There you go. Well, listeners might be, completely baffled. What is this episode about? Has this turned into a geography podcast? Actually, everybody, we are here today to offer our pop culture resolutions. Joe, you already kind of delved into your general life resolutions, some of the big ones, right? Exercise, losing weight, things with family, places that we want to go. But these are our pop culture resolutions. One thing I was thinking about, we today will be creating our future rabbit holes. Don't you think? This is what we're going to be doing with these resolutions today.
I do. And I think there's also a question that we're going to, over the next year, be able to answer. And that is, these are all things that we want to do. Like, nobody wants to go on a diet. Nobody wants to exercise more. The resolutions we're throwing out, this is kind of fun stuff. I want to find out over the next year, is it going to be just as difficult to keep resolutions for things we actually do want to do as it is to, keep the resolutions that we don't want to do?
Yes. So for me, you can maybe speak for yourself. These are little fun things that are kind of bothering me. They're in the back of my mind. They're not major life changes, but they're things as far as the music, the film, the books that I've wanted to enjoy that I just haven't, gotten to them the way that I wanted to. So in a way, I guess I would say it's similar to losing that weight, where it's like, oh, I know I need to do this. I'm going to make the right change. And we're excited to be able to offer this to you today. And you know what? We hope maybe to inspire you as well. At the end of every episode, we give you the opportunity to give us some feedback, email, Twitter, all those things. We want to hear from you. We're interested. What are your pop culture resolutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Come along on this journey with us. And maybe, just maybe, next January, you'll be able to say to all your friends, hey, I kept all of my New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, what will it say about us if it's next year and we're like, yeah, I didn't do any of that? What would you say? We gave in to our our weaknesses and made no changes.
And that's the thing. By doing this episode, we necessarily have to come on next year and have kind of a rundown of okay, well, how well did you do on this one? And how did you do on that one? And so, in a sense, this podcast is a form of accountability for us to do all these fun things.
The funny thing about these things, at least, you can speak for yourself. For me, a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are already sitting there looking at me, right? They're already in my house. They're already readily available for me. It's not as if this is going to be hard, right? The problem is, and I have this as a pastime, I sometimes just like to look at my bookshelves and go, huh, yeah, okay. Oh, I remember that book. I bought that 7 years ago, never cracked it open. And I just love looking at books, right? I love like feeling like I'm living in a library, whether it's vinyl, CDs, books, DVDs, whatever it is. I just like living that way, but I don't always get to it. So what we're talking about today is making a pledge of this is the things that we're actually going to get to.
So you want to just dive right into it, Chris?
I would love to. Yeah, there's not going to be any new segments today. We're not going to do any of our fun normal segments. We just want to give you our resolution. So yeah, you want me to go first?
Yeah, well, yeah. What's your first resolution? What's your first pop culture resolution?
I feel like I'm show and tell time today. It's just like I'm going to share all of my things today. My first one is this: I pledge today. I resolve to read at least one of my musical biographies that I've bought. Read a musical biography. The reason that I chose this one, Joe, is that it's getting a little bit ridiculous over here, and I am surrounded by beauty, by the inspiration of great musicians, and all of these books. I mean, like, what am I doing, right? What am I doing with myself? I'll show you one here that I got here just for Christmas. It's Bono's autobiography. Did you buy that one?
I have not got that one yet. No, I did pick up a copy of Dylan's new book, but
Dylan's new book. Well, hold on a minute here. Now, with this Bono biography, I think this might be number one on my list because it's like new and people are talking about it. There's some buzz about it. And I've heard that the audiobook is really good. And I just think I've done it a couple of times where I've actually sat with a book and read along with an audiobook as I read the book itself. And I've heard the audiobook is just really kind of something special and interesting. So
I'm jumping around the living room of 10 Cedarwood Road to the sound of Glad to See You Go from the Ramones Leave Home. You gotta go, 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 goodbye. Glad to see you go, 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 goodbye. It's 1978, the day of my 18th birthday.
That might be number one on my list, but we'll see. We'll see what's doable, right, for me. But again, I know some people don't like Bono. He's a bit much. There was actually an article when this book came out. It was in The Atlantic, and the article was called "The Too Muchness of Bono." Did you see that one?
I didn't.
And a lot of the article was like focused on just like, in many ways, Bono is a larger than life figure. By the way, if you're listening to this and you're like, Bono, he's talking about what's Bono? It's the lead singer of U2, one of the most famous rock bands of the last several decades. Well, Bono can tend to rub people the wrong way. He's too much, the too muchness of him. But you know what? I like the guy. He gets a pass.
When you said who's this Bono guy, it reminded me of a story. The late Phil Ramone, a great producer, Phil Ramone, produced Frank Sinatra's Duets album. You remember that big album in the 90s?
Yeah. And what I remember is that isn't there an SNL skit about that?
There is, yes, with Phil Hartman, I think. Yeah, right.
Yeah. He's like he berates everybody, right? He's like just going off on stuff. Yeah.
Let's keep it moving, Steve. Who's next?
Good. We got Bono from U2.
How you doing now, Mr. Sinatra? As a child, my mom played your songs all the time in the parlor.
Don't write me a book, kid.
All right, well, I've written a special song for us. It's about how technology is ruining humanity and
I've got you under my skin. 1, 2, 3. I've got you under my skin. I've got you deep in the heart of me. Take it, share.
So deep in my heart, you're a part of me.
Bring it home.
You never can win.
Tell them why.
'Cause I got you
under my skin. All right, how's that, Steve?
Great, Frank.
Okay, next tune. See you, kid. Good job.
I think I could do it a little better if we did it a second time.
I'm 93, baby. When you're pushing a century, there is no take two. Get out, bozo.
But there's a duet. I think it's "I Got You Under My Skin" with Bono, and the great story was when Phil Ramone suggested to Frank Sinatra that he do a song with Bono. Sinatra got irate and got really pissed off and was offended by it. And that's because he thought he was talking about Sonny Bono. He had no idea who Bono was.
You can't blame the guy. You get to a certain age, and these kids, what are you gonna say? Okay, you mentioned this one earlier. I did buy this as another gift. The Philosophy of Modern Song, which I hear isn't exactly a philosophy book, and it's just old Bob, Mr. Zimmerman, his ruminations on all of his. What did he select? Like 40 favorite songs or whatever it is. It's a lot of songs in here.
Like 60. I think it's 60.
60. Yeah. I haven't started it yet either. I'm looking forward to it greatly.
I actually just started that book this week. And I'll tell you what I'm doing with that book. I'm actually reading like one of the essays every week with my son. And we are listening to the songs and we're having discussions about them. And it's really cool because honestly, I mean, half of the songs in the book I'm not familiar with. And my son is probably not familiar with 90% of them. So it's just I thought it would be just a cool way to introduce both of us to some new music. And, you can't go wrong, when your music teacher is Bob Dylan.
Okay, so the song from his recent album, what is it called? Can't remember his last album. He has a song on there, though, called I Contain Multitudes. You familiar with that song? Love it.
Yeah.
I play Beethoven sonatas, Chopin's preludes. I contain multitudes.
I love the latest Bob Dylan album, even though I can't remember the name of the title.
It's a great record. Rough and Rowdy Ways.
There you go. Thank you. I think this book, Philosophy of Modern Song, is evidence of how Dylan contains multitudes. Because if you really had the time, you could go back and listen to his Theme Time Radio Hour episodes, of which he has a multitude, it's a great show. It's probably still available in certain places. And then in recent years, he actually, probably a lot of people don't fully realize this, he wasn't releasing his regular songwriter solo albums, but instead was going through the American Songbook. And so like the multitude of things that you could cover if you had the time. I mean, this is how rabbit holes work, right? This is how we get our obsessions. You listen to those Dylan albums where he's doing covers of old songs. You listen to the Theme Time Radio Hour. You read the book. You make sure you go back and listen to all the originals that he's talking about, right? The original songs. I mean, this could be the next year of your life, Joe. Just that, right? You could just spend almost all your time doing that.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because part of what I'm doing with my son is it actually involves that. Though we haven't started yet, the plan is to listen to an episode of the Theme Time Radio Hour every week along with the essay. And
that sounds fun.
And what I want to mention is that they are available if you go to themetimeradio.com. All the episodes are archived online.
Welcome everybody to Theme Time Radio Hour. It's good to see so many familiar faces. Stopped off downstairs, got the latest gossip from Carl's Barbershop. I see they slapped a new coat of paint in the lobby of the Abernathy building, and I'm happy to say the coffee at Sampson's is as strong as it ever was. Yes, indeedy do. I could not be happier to be with you today. Even more so because today's theme is something the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence guarantees us the pursuit of, along with life and liberty. You guessed it. Stick around, and for the next hour, we'll be listening to songs all about happiness. I can't promise I'm going to make you happy, but I'm going to do my darndest.
But we didn't listen to the first episode of it yet. I'll tell you what we did this week. Before we got into the book, we listened to Bob's Nobel Prize speech.
Oh, that's okay. It's been a while, but yeah, I remember listening to that.
If I was to go back to the dawning of it all, I guess I'd have to start with Buddy Holly. Buddy died when I was about 18 and he was 22. From the moment I first heard him, I felt akin. I felt related, like he was an older brother. I even thought I resembled him. Buddy played the music that I loved, the music I grew up on: country western, rock and roll, and rhythm and blues. 3 separate strands of music that he intertwined and infused into one genre, one brand. And Buddy wrote songs that had beautiful melodies and imaginative verses. And he sang great. He sang in more than a few voices. He was the archetype, everything I wasn't and wanted to be. I saw him only but once, and that was a few days before he was gone. I had to travel 100 miles to get to see him play, and I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, I had never listened to the whole thing. I had listened to maybe like 5 or 10 minutes of it. It was great. I mean, really, really great. I just, and you hear, like, especially these days, like, it's very seldom that, Bob really opens up. Every few years there might be a great interview or something in the New York Times or whatnot. I think he did one a few years back, I think an AARP of all places, that was a great interview.
Yeah. Actually, there's a recent one with Wall Street Journal for the release of this book, a really, really good interview. And he went like full into whatever is his faith these days, which he's like, I'm full on apocalyptic. I believe in the second coming. Like like he goes off. And then he starts talking about TV shows that he hates as well. So it's actually a really good interview. I really enjoyed it.
You know what, Chris? This particular resolution, and I don't want to steal your thunder. I want to hear more of the books that you want to dive into. But this is a resolution. It was not on my list, but I think I may join you on this resolution because I have a growing stack of music biographies myself that I have just, because like you said, you see this and you go, oh, this is great. I can't wait to read this. And then you never get around to it. And then you see the next one and you grab that one. And I probably have probably 8 or 9 music biographies on a shelf. They've got their place of honor for these books I've never read. And so, I think I'm going to join you. I'm going to try to knock 1 or 2 of those out.
There you go. Yeah. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah. What else what other ones have you been holding on to?
Well, this one is particularly, like, when I look at it, my heart breaks because I don't know why I haven't read this yet, because it just would make sense for me to do so. It's I Me Mine by George Harrison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I need to read this. I don't know what's going on. What is wrong with me? What is
I'm jealous because I don't even own a copy of that.
My mother-in-law gave it to me, and I just thought, well, what am I doing with my life, Joe? What's going on? So really, maybe this one should be number 1 on my list, but I'll probably do Bono first. So
that's the one that John Lennon was offended by because George didn't write about him in it. I think he snubbed John in that book.
There are certainly a lot of pictures in it. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, like the way that like there's letters and journal entries, and there's lyrics and stuff. Anyway, that's one book. Here's a quick one. The band Arcade Fire. It's been sitting on my shelf. I've read portions of this over the years. Here are 2 different books, though. Here's 2 different books. This one is really cool. And I know you're not really into this, but this is a book that came out last year, and it's the artwork from Radiohead's Kid A album, Kid A and Amnesiac. And what they did was they went into all the design and conceptions of the various artworks that they did for the album. So this is like a fine art book with some explanations in it, right? So every now and then you'll get some, like, here's what we were doing, like notes that they took and stuff. So I mean, it's if you like Radiohead, I mean, it's a beautiful book. It's kind of like one of those books you'd find in a museum, like, and you pick up the artwork of Van Gogh or something like that. Except this is from an album, right? So this is another one of my music books.
Well, I noticed right away that the artwork's beautiful. I wasn't familiar with that. Is that the album cover?
This is the album cover for Kid A, and it's just full of artwork, all kinds of different artwork, and it's fascinating stuff. So there you go. There's that, and I have one more. Another beautiful book, big coffee table book, and it's The Beatles Get Back. Did you get that one too?
You know what? I never got that either, and I actually have to say I have probably 6 or 7 Beatles books on that shelf.
I have a few too. Yeah. This book is maybe slightly unique in that it's dialogue from the Get Back sessions, from the filming. So it's just kind of a different style. It's not a full-on biography or an assessment of the album. It's more of just like fly on the wall type stuff from the recording session. So anyway, maybe I'll get to it someday. We'll see.
That sounds similar to the I think they did a companion book for the Beatles anthology back in the 90s. It was, I think, somewhat similar to that. It was like it was dialogue, but from the interviews that they did for the anthology. One I haven't gotten to, I guess that is certainly Beatle related, is I've had for a while now, is the Philip Norman biography on Paul McCartney, Paul McCartney, The Life. And that's one on my list. I have another book with the same name. It's Paul Simon, The Life, by Robert Hilburn. And I've one I really want to get into, and then I've got a couple autobiographies that I have just not gotten around to, and that's one because it's huge, and that's Springsteen's autobiography, Born to Run. It's just I can tell that's going to take some time, and it's a lot. I got to spend a lot of time with Bruce, and so I got to be prepared for that because and you mentioned like artists. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine last week. And what you were talking about Bono, we were talking about Bruce. And my friend was telling me, he goes, I love Springsteen. I love him. He goes, but sometimes he's a bit much. And I think.
Yeah. He's a similar kind of personality. He's like, okay, Bruce, you can go home now. It's okay. You've been here a lot. You've been here enough.
The other autobiography, I picked up a copy of Elton John's autobiography a while back. But there's a couple books that aren't even music related that I really want to get to. And one is Norm Macdonald's book, based on a true story. I've had that sitting on my shelf for a year, and I need to get around to that.
This is kind of actually what we're talking about in some ways. Is the celebrity biography or the artist biography, which like I don't read a lot of, to be honest. I'm reading novels, I'm reading theology and historical books and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. Like it's a fun world to dwell in. I know that you have other biographies as well. I mean, are you ever going to get to OJ?
Yeah, well, that's it, but that's signed by OJ. I've got to be really careful with that because it's literally worth tens of dollars, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay. I will read the signed OJ book one of these days. I will. I don't know like if I can take that much narcissism right now, but I will get around to it at some point. Anything else?
Well, I have a Beatles biography too, a really big thick one. I think the author is Bob Spitz is his name.
Oh yeah.
I have a Billy Joel. Yeah, it's like 800 pages thick. I have a Billy Joel biography that's I can't find. It's in a book, a box somewhere in our garage, which I'll eventually get to.
Is that the Fred Schreier's book with black cover? I
think so.
That's
a really nice biography.
That's on my shelf. I've never read it.
Yeah. And you know what? A couple of years ago, I at one of those book sales that library has a bookshelf. I got a big encyclopedia compendium of country and western music. It's like this big thick book, and I it's stuff like that where it's like just sitting there and I'm going, bury me with these things. I want to read them when I'm dead.
You know what? Speaking of library, you know what book I picked up at a library like 2 days ago, and this has been on my list for decades to read, and that is the Late Shift by Bill Carter. You familiar with that book?
Yeah, I mean, I've not read it, but I certainly know of it. Yeah, what do you know about those books?
So it's the chronicle of the battle between David Letterman and Jay Leno for the Tonight Show. I've read the sequel book, which chronicled the Conan O'Brien Leno fiasco, but I've never read the original. I've seen the movie a couple times, but I've always wanted to just sit down and read the book, and I found it for $1. At my local library a couple days ago. And so I said, that's a book I want to read this year.
Yeah. So isn't that the way things go? I would totally read that book. At the same time, I'm never going to read it. I'm just not, because of all the books I just listed to you right now. It's like, well, I'm going to make my choices. I'm going to read all these beforehand. And isn't that something,
Yeah.
But so it goes. Joe, I'm interested. What's your first resolution?
Okay, Chris. So I know you're a big vinyl guy, and you have been for years. I have only started getting into vinyl a little bit over the last maybe 5 years or so, and I've never gotten really deep into it for a couple reasons. And the big one was we've moved a lot over the last few years, and we also I didn't really have a good turntable. I had one of those Crosley suitcase things, and but it's one of those things that I've wanted to do. Well, late last year, I got I say new stereo. I got a vintage Curtis Mathes from 1980. This thing's older than me, but I love it. It's a really cool system, and it has a working 8-track player in it and a cassette. and a nice turntable. And so I have, over the last couple months, I've really started getting into vinyl much more than I had. And I'm really enjoying the heck out of it. And so my resolution is this. I have a bookshelf in my living room, and it's one of those like cube things, right? And it's got 8 cubes, and they fit vinyl perfect. And right now I have just about 2 cubes filled with records. And that's about all I really have. I don't have a ton, and each cube fits maybe 75, 80, roughly, that many albums. My goal, and this is kind of an ambitious one, I think, and also because it involves money, is I want to work toward filling up that bookshelf with vinyl this year. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it off, but I want to fill all 8 of those cubes with vinyl, and I have sort of a plan of how to do it.
What's the plan?
My plan involves lots of used vinyl, for one, because, one, I do buy new records on occasion, but full well, it's not a cheap hobby to buy a lot of new stuff. So every now and then I will buy a new record, but I am, even aside from records, I'm a big thrift store guy, and I'm a big antique store. We have 2 antique malls right here in town, and we have several thrift stores, and I make the rounds multiple times a week just to see what new is in for whatever. But so lately I've been going straight to the vinyl section, and our antique mall has both of them have 2 really nice areas that are just filled with tons of vinyl, and those are great. They're a little bit more expensive, but you can get really good deals. And so I kind of go in and I can find stuff, good records for under $10. Pretty, often find something. The thrift stores is tougher because, typically speaking, what's your experience when you go into a thrift store and you look through the vinyl?
Yeah, it's Engelbert Humperdinck or something, and Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. It's like, no offense, I like Herb Alpert.
I've seen Engelbert live.
No, there you go. Hey, so it's always something like 50 country and western tunes, and it's some bland cover, and you look on it, it's just like, who put this together? It's like compilations and Burl Ives and independent Southern gospel that you've never heard of. People, it's like, things that you're just like, where does this stuff come from? I actually had one person one time contact me and said, you should go to the local Goodwill. There's some really great records there. And I did. It was great. I got a stash of records. But yeah, most of the time it's like, they're half falling apart. They're brown and yellowed and, cracked.
And that is the thing. So when you do go to a thrift store and they have a ton of them, you really have to dig through them, and you could be in there an hour digging through all the vinyl to find one record, maybe 2.
We have a record store in our town, a really nice one, but they don't sell new vinyl. They're a used record shop, and they're an amazing place. But at times it can be tough to look through everything, right? Just to find what you want.
Yeah, because they try to alphabetize it, but they don't always get it, perfect, and so you got to dig through everything to find something.
And then they have the cheapo section. One time, I regret it. There was an Art Garfunkel record, and it was for $1, and for some reason I just didn't get it, and I kicked myself for it. The Art Garfunkel solo record.
I have an Art Garfunkel solo record that I picked up at a thrift store.
One, yeah.
Was it the one with him sitting with a woman at a table or something on the cover?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like kind of bluish gray.
That's the what was the name of that album? Is it Breakaway? I think it's the record that has the song, the Simon and Garfunkel reunion song on it, My Little Town. Remember that song?
Not really. See, I should have got it.
Okay, well, there's a good one for you. You got to go listen to that song. That's the only Simon and Garfunkel song that was a hit after they broke up. In 1975, they did a reunion, released it as a single, and that song is on Art's album and on Paul's album that year. The same song.
No, that's nice.
It's sweet, isn't it? And then they went back to hating each other. But
Exactly.
for another
decade or two.
Well, they had another 5 or 6 years, and then they loved each other again. Then they hated each other again, and then and so on. And so they hate each other now, right? I think, and have they settled on that? I think they've settled on a permanent hatred. But
is that what it is?
You never know. There's always hope.
They'll reconcile on their deathbeds. They'll die on the same day
because because they were like they're like the Joker and Batman, meant to be together, right? Think about thrift stores, though. I'll say this to you. I think maybe it's partially because of the music I was exposed to growing up. The reason thrift stores work for me as well as they do is because I kind of like a lot of music that you find in thrift stores. Not all of it, but I don't need 10 Ray Conniff albums or Percy Faith, singers, but I do like some of those artists. And so I'm gonna show you now a few of the things that I've picked up. In fact, I picked this up this morning. I was out this morning, ran in, and this is a box set here, the best of Perry Como. Now, I love Perry Como. Grew up listening to Perry Como. We always had a couple of his albums in our house.
Papa loves mambo, Mama loves mambo. Look at him sway with it, getting so gay with it, shouting olay with it.
It's a really nice set. It looks like they've never been played. There's 6 albums in here. This is, I told my wife when I got home, I said, I have all the Perry Como I'll ever need right in this box.
Yeah, exactly. What more do you want?
Exactly. And I also got one of Mario Lanza, very similar box set there of
I don't know who is that.
Oh, you're not even familiar with Mario Lanza. Kind of a very dramatic Italian singer, very operatic in his delivery. Now, but I say that, I also picked up some interesting, just records here. There's Johnny Mathis Greatest Hits. This one here, I was excited about. I played it when I got home. It's great. It's Joey D and the Starlighters. You ever hear of them? They had a song called the Peppermint Twist in 1961.
I
might have heard that. Yeah.
Well, you gotta do the dance and it goes like this. Yeah, the name of the dance is the Peppermint Twist. Well, you like this, the Peppermint Twist.
This is the album that song was on from 1961. The album's called Doing the Twist, recorded live at the Peppermint Lounge. And anyway, all that to say, there's a fun little fact that I think you will get a kick out of about Joey D and the Starlighters. I heard this many, many years ago, and I kind of wondered if this was just an urban legend. So I actually looked it up today to see if this is actually true. And sure enough, it is true. Now, bear in mind, I want to preface this by saying these two people are not on this record. They did not record with them. But at various times in the 1960s, both Joe Pesci and Jimi Hendrix played guitar with Joey D and the Starlighters.
I'm having trouble believing that. So that I'm amazed. That is quite an amazing factoid.
It is. That is your fun fact of the day. Now, Chris, I'm going to blow your mind though, and this is why I keep going back to thrift stores, because this morning, they have this big shelf filled with records, and on top of the shelf was sitting a couple records. And I just grabbed to see what they were, and I pulled down these.
Oh, wow.
So I'm holding 2 copies of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, I looked it up, and I know one of them is a 1976 reissue. And inside, if I can find it, this is really cool. Inside, there's this sheet that came with different cutouts
Yeah, I've seen that before somewhere. I think my mother-in-law has a new copy, like one of the when they remastered Sergeant Pepper's a few years ago. I think that came in those new ones. So that's neat that you have like almost an original version of it.
And anyway, what I'm going to tell you is that I paid a quarter each for these copies of Sergeant Pepper.
What is going on? Do they not know how to sell their records?
I have to tell you, normally, I mean, I had to pay $4 for the Perry Como box set and a quarter for Sergeant Pepper. So somebody probably wasn't doing their job.
Those could probably go for 15, 20 at least,
Yeah. So I'm thinking like usually like when they know like something is good, they'll price it up a little bit. Typically speaking, like records are 50 cents to $1, but like if there's something good, they almost always stick a sticker on it and put like $5, $8, $10. This one, these slipped through, and I walked out with Sergeant Pepper today for a quarter, so I'm pretty happy today. And so my goal is to just go from thrift store to thrift store. From one town to the next, like Dr. Richard Kimball, toiling at my many jobs of digging through records. And I need to fill up 8 cubes. I need about 500 records, I figured out. But that's my goal this year. We'll see how I do with it.
That's amazing. And I know you've also tried the $5 record club.
Yes.
Right?
You know what? That's something I really did want to talk about. So thank you for bringing that up, man.
And by the way, we are looking for sponsors.
yeah. If you're listening, $5records.com. No, I want to preface this by saying these guys, they don't sponsor us, but I do want to talk about it because I think they're awesome. Have you been to their website yet?
Yeah, I've checked it out. Yeah.
I've done a couple orders there. There's this website. I think they just launched about a year ago. It's $5records.com. And it's exactly what it sounds like. They sell tons of records and they're all $5. But the cool thing about it is I've ordered 4 and they've all come in great shape. They've all played perfect. And every record you buy from them is guaranteed. So if you get it and it doesn't play or it skips or anything, you can send it back to them. I think they even, up to a certain amount, they'll even pay your postage to mail it back. But every record I've played so far has been perfect. And they have a great selection. Now, they say this right on their website. These are $5 records. You're not going to find the Beatles. You're not going to find, Led Zeppelin. But, I mean, I found Billy Joel on there. I found Paul Simon and Cat Stevens and, some really, really great stuff.
Would you say, are they used records? Is that what they are? Or they're not brand new, just pressed records? Is that correct?
So they're not brand new records. The vast majority are used opened records, but they do sell like some that are still sealed.
Right, because every now and then you'll find that, right? It's still in the shrink wrap, but it's used in the sense that it's printed 30 years ago or something like that. Right?
Exactly. So that's the kind of stuff you can expect to find. But yeah, so that's another big part of my plan is to try to fill in the blanks with some of those records. Like, I can fill some shelves with some thrift store records that I will listen to and I will enjoy, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to get. But some of those albums that I do want to go out of my way to get, I go to antique stores or I go to order on $5records.com, or occasionally, just go to, or order from Amazon or go to Target or Walmart and just buy a new record.
Yeah. So that's funny. It's funny what you're saying. This, you want to expand and have more records, and in some ways, and I need to figure this out. Like this is potentially a resolution for myself, which might kind of sound negative, but actually, I would want to frame it in the positive, which is I might have enough records. I might be good to go for the rest of my life. Now, I do preface this by saying I would continue purchasing new albums that come out. So, like my favorite artist right now is Sufjan Stevens. If U2 comes out with a real album as opposed to whatever tribute record they've done for themselves, I would probably maybe purchase a new U2 album. That kind of thing.
I'm sorry, I've not heard it referred to as a tribute to themselves. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. It's like Tenacious D. You know Tenacious D? They should do a song about U2 tributing themselves.
You have no plans of buying the new U2 album then?
Not the ones of 40 covers of songs that I've listened to since I was 5 years old. No.
Someone you could lend a hand in return for grace. It's a beautiful day. Let it get away. It's a beautiful day.
And I respect what they're doing. I think it's great in some ways, and in the same time, it's like, no, I don't have time for that.
It really is the U2 album that nobody asked for.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this negatively, but maybe my decision to not buy more vinyl has to do with, like, I just have to figure out what I do have time for. And I will continue to purchase new albums that come out. But in terms of old albums, legacy albums, classic albums, I have so much. I have a wealth right now. My father-in-law died recently, and he had a huge classical music record collection. I could spend the rest of my life just listening to that, and I would live a very good life. My life would be full of Bach and Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and all this kind of stuff. I don't really even listen to classical music that much, even though I really like it. So it's kind of funny that you want to expand on yours. Now, there are some bands that I want to keep filling out. Like I really, really love ELO, and there's a few ELO albums that I would, maybe want to buy more of, or maybe a few Queen albums, a few Billy Joel albums here and there, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, those types of classic works. Maybe I would want some more of those. But to be honest, I have 5 Stevie Wonder albums, and I don't really listen to those as much as I should at all. So do I need more Stevie Wonder albums? Is the kind of the question. And so there you go. And this actually leads into my next resolution. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my next resolution, and I'm kind of serious about this. I think maybe this is one that other people could claim as kind of something fun. Here's the question. Is there a kind of music or an artist, let's say, a genre of music or an artist that you've always kind of liked, but you've never really taken the time to get into, right? And I've been thinking about this for a little while, and I guess there's a genre of music that, because of when we grew up in the early to mid 80s, I really feel at home with this genre. But when I was a kid, this was just radio music. And I never purchased these albums myself. And so here it is for me. The genre is new wave and post-punk, let's say. New wave post-punk music. So I'm gonna show you one of those first. And here's an album cover. And when I see this album cover, I don't know, it just makes me, I don't know, it does something to me. Here you go. What is this, Joe?
Oh, Eurythmics. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Eurythmics. It's Annie Lennox, and she has. I mean, she's dressed. Well, I don't know. Is she dressed? She might have a shirt on underneath, but it's her skin. It's a mask. She has this fiery orangish red hair, and she's kind of doing a fist pump. And oh man, this just makes me feel like I'm somewhere. I'm dancing in the 80s to this.
It's kind of badass. I mean, she looks like a Mortal Kombat character ready to just destroy me.
Oh man, I love Annie Lennox. I've adored her for some time. And so this is one of these resolutions where it's like similar to me in my musical biographies. It's like, what are you doing? Do something with your life, Chris. Seize the day. You say you like Annie Lennox, you say you like the Eurythmics. Well, it's time to make them part of your life. Okay. So anyway, I got this album for Christmas. I'm really excited to listen to it. And by the way, you and I have talked about this. Album covers as art. I mean, there's a few album covers I just love to put up on my walls if I get a chance, and this would be one of them. I just love this album cover so much.
Yeah, that's a dream. That's a dream of mine, to have a room that's all album covers. I need more walls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Is that the first Eurythmics Annie Lennox album ever that you've ever owned?
It is, absolutely. And I got another one too, the one that came after this. This is the one, Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, or this Sweet Dreams, the famous one.
Sweet dreams are made of these.
And so these albums are back to back. And so I just kind of, I haven't really listened to these. And so it's time to immerse myself in it. I also love Annie Lennox solo albums too. So like that's the next step. Right. And there's a whole slew of artists like this that I could list. Like, I'd like to get into Peter Gabriel more. I want to listen more into ELO, even though I don't know that we could necessarily call ELO new wave, but it's just that era of music. And here's another one. Talking Heads. Yeah, this is a great album.
That is a band I have never dived into, I have to admit. Other than, like the few songs that, I've heard on the radio over the years, I really know almost nothing about Talking Heads.
This is one of these bands that I knew the smattering of the songs, right? Burning Down the House, a few of them or whatever. I caught their it was on Amazon Prime, their documentary / concert film, Stop Making Sense.
Our next cult video is also a long-playing concert film. The film is Stop Making Sense, and it features the music of David Byrne and the Talking Heads. But credit for the success of this movie and its cult video status must be shared, I think, by the musicians with the film's director, Jonathan Demme, who has the good sense to place his camera right up on stage with David Byrne and his crew and simply let them perform with all the joy they possess. And what's so appealing here, as opposed to other rock concert films, is that David Byrne and the Talking Heads seem to respect their audience and their music. They don't come across as a typically angry and aloof set of musicians. Again, this is a better music video than anything you can find on MTV, so why not rent it? I love the way they love their music.
One of the things I love about this film is the incredible, boundless physical energy of David Byrne. He runs around the stage. It must be 5 miles during this film. Mm-hmm. This is like the Olympiad meets rock music. And the physical energy combined with the musical energy makes this whole film so upbeat and so vivifying that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed it.
You ever seen that?
I have not.
It's directed by Jonathan Demme. I think he ended up directing Silence of the Lambs. Movie director. It's one of the most iconic concert films, and that kind of struck me. Like, it turned a switch in my head where I thought, oh, I get Talking Heads a little bit. They were not around when I was growing up, and so anyway, this is my resolution, right? It's kind of like this thing. I say I like this music. Well, all right, time to make it part of my life, I guess. And I want to immerse myself more in it. Part of this for me is, in my house, we have an ongoing, construction remodeling project in our basement. And so our basement right now is unfinished. It's like, it's a big concrete room. And the idea is to finish that in the coming months. And my hope is to set up my record player down there. I have 2 record players, and one is more for communal in the house. And I have 4 kids, and I'll be honest with you, between them playing video games and people sleeping, sometimes playing records, it's better to just not. It's actually kind of a joy killer to put on a record, and there's noise and there's chaos, and I have to take the little one to the bathroom and make a snack, and on it goes. So I'm hoping that I kind of get a little bit of a corner, a little bit of a den in the basement where I can just sit and listen to, kind of a dream of mine is sit and listen to a whole album, right? Just sit and do that. I don't do that as much as I like. And in some ways, that's maybe a coupled with this resolution. Get more into new wave, post-punk, which I really like. And then also sit and just listen to albums.
I have to admit that it is very rare that I sit and just listen. I'm usually doing something while it's playing. So, like, if I'm making dinner, I put a record on, or if I'm, even sometimes if I'm sitting and reading, I'll just put some music on, like, low in the background. Like, I do occasionally, we'll put an album, especially if it's an album I really want, or if it is a new record that, has just come out, I will make a point to sit and listen to that. But 9 times out of 10, it's sort of on in the background while I'm doing 100 other things.
Yeah. I think a lot of my resolutions are about finding ways to take time to really immerse myself in things. As we look back at the past, I think one of the things that I miss about earlier eras in my life is the deep dive It's the ability to just sit with something, and instead of feeling the pressure to watch 200 films and all the new TV shows, and have I watched everything that's ever come out, which I think maybe will relate to a later resolution that we'll have. Instead of feeling that pressure, instead to just be content with like the one thing and just immerse myself in that one thing. Like as a kid, I mean, were you obsessive about albums where it's like I would just kind of listen to one album for a good month almost, and I would scatter different albums in there, but then boy, this was like my album for half of a year almost. I would do that quite frequently.
There, like, we talk about Billy Joel a lot, but I spent about a year of my life as a kid just diving into every single Billy Joel album and almost nothing else, for when I was 13, 14 years old. After that, it was the Beatles took up a lot of the mid to late 90s for me. And I say that not just the Beatles, but also a lot of their solo work. There's so much stuff just with the Beatles that you can spend a lifetime trying to hear it all. And so yeah, I definitely, when I was younger especially, I spent a lot of time with certain records. Now I'm kind of in a place where I over the last few years I've been trying to make up for some of the stuff that I missed along the way, or stuff that I definitely heard but didn't give nearly as much attention to as I wish I had. So, and we've talked about this a lot. I don't buy a ton of new music, but I do buy music that is new to me, that is older or that I'm familiar with.
Right.
And even that is part of that. I think it's that like it's almost like oh my gosh, I'm in my 40s and I've only got so much time I've to try to cram all this in, and it's like a making up for lost time kind of thing. And so in some ways the idea of listening to a lot of new music is almost, it's like, that's great, I would love to, and maybe I'll get there in a few years, but right now I've just got too much of a backlog. And it's like, no, it's just too much to add like another new artist in. God bless them. I wish them all the best. But right now I need to focus on, 70, 80 years of records that I haven't heard.
We're backlogged and we're front logged, right? It's just we're logged. I would say I do have Paramore's new album. I pre-ordered it, so I'm excited about that as a new album that's coming out. I mean, I highly recommend listen to some of their singles. It sounds like it's going to be a really fun album. I also bought Brandi Carlile's latest album as well, and haven't listened to it yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. I love both of those artists, Brandi Carlile, Hayley Williams with Paramore as well. So there's just too much.
Well, what other, is there any other new wave stuff that you have picked up or you want to pick up?
Well, it's actually, I was talking to a friend today and he was talking a little bit about new wave, and it's another thing about saying there's just too much out there. I asked him about The Cure and who they were, and he said that they were kind of like a post-punk, and I thought, well, I kind of like to get into The Cure. I kind of like that kind of music a lot. I'm also very interested in, I don't think this is new wave. What is it? It's a electronic synthesizer music. I want to get more into Kraftwerk and Neu, which are these two German bands, and I just love stuff like that too. I love analog synthesizer music. I want to listen to Brian Eno's. I want to get more into Brian Eno. I mean, what do we do? Like sitting here right now, I'm getting anxious. I'm getting sad and anxious because it's like, how am I going to get to everything, Joe? And it's just funny. I at the end of the day, I just have to lighten up a little bit, right?
But yeah, that's the thing, because there's a part of it that is just acceptance, and there is a point at which we have to accept we are never going to get to everything we want to get to. And one of the things, and you've said this for years, and I remember us talking about, and we've already mentioned him a lot on this episode, and that's Bob Dylan. Well, it would take me the rest of my life to listen to everything that Bob has put out. I would have to, if I took a year off of everything else, including probably movies and books and all other musicians, and I only listened to Bob Dylan, maybe this year I could cram it all in, and I would have to work at it. And who has that time? Yeah. I love you, Bob. I do, but I have had to accept that I'm a Bob Dylan fan who does not know every Bob Dylan song and probably won't.
Yeah. You know what we should do next year? We should make a resolution. Both you and I should just fully immerse ourselves in his self-portrait album.
Oh, okay.
That's what we should do. We should just make a pledge. We're like, that's going to be our album. We're going to listen to nothing but self-portrait for like 3 months.
I thought you were going to suggest listening to everything he did. I was like, this is just going to become a Bob Dylan podcast.
There goes Bob Dylan podcast. No, the reason I say self-portrait is because think of there are so many obscure Dylan albums that people just don't even like get to, or maybe like the basement tapes with the band, right? You know, like they
yeah.
Oh, you know, that's what we could do. The thing about Bob is he's so insane. It's like, you know, he releases these bootleg series, and so now it's like he has an album, and then he has like 3 or 4 more albums behind the main album, and so it's like it's exponential growth. I mean, who does he think we are? You know, how does he think we have enough capacity to care? But there you go.
No, I'll let's do it. I'm down for it. But next year.
Well, yeah, next year. We'll do it next year. Well, we are going to pause here in the middle of our resolutions and come back next week with the second half of all of our New Year's pop culture resolutions. We hope you join us. We hope you enjoyed these ones. Joe, we are eager for some audience interaction here. Where can they find us? Because we want to hear from you. You know, maybe there might be time for us to read your letter on air, depending on if we get it. Your tweet, some kind of comment. We'd love to hear from you. What are your pop culture resolutions? What are some things you want to bring back into your life? Some things that you've been wanting to try that you haven't quite gotten there. And so maybe you can make a pledge. You can make a commitment, and you can actually make it happen in this new year in 2023. Joe, where can they find us?
They can find us all over social media. Of course, we're on Twitter at Past Future Pod. We're Nostalgic Future Podcast on Facebook and Instagram and on YouTube. You can email us at nostalgicfuturepodcast@gmail.com. Drop us a line. We really do want to hear, what are your pop culture resolutions?
Thanks so much for joining us this week, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Nostalgic Future Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at nostalgicfuturepodcast@gmail.com. We may just read your letter on an upcoming show. Follow us on social media, Nostalgic Future Podcast on Facebook and at Past Future Pod on Twitter. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review to help support what we do. Until next time, remember, the past is the only way forward.
Here's some of the most popular New Year's resolutions. How many of these have you made? How many of these will you break? Number 1, spend more time with family and friends. Recent polls show that more than 50% of Americans promise to appreciate loved ones and spend more time with family and friends this year. Number 2, exercise more. Number 3, lose weight. Number 4, quit smoking. Number 5, enjoy life more. I'm going to try that one. Number 6, quit drinking. Number 7, get out of debt. Number 8, learn something new. Well, that's easy if you keep listening to Theme Time Radio Hour. Number 9, help others and volunteer. Well, I think we talked about that. And number 10, I've got this somewhere around here. Oh, here it is. Get organized.